wilderness rivers, undammed, a free-flowing state of mind. Wilderness rivers are on the decline. Though sections may be protected, it is difficult to find even a small river that has not experienced the heavy hand of man. High in the Sierra Nevada of California is the Merced River. It is free-flowing through most of its early miles, and its headwaters include some of the finest scenery in the United States.
Solid Class 3 rapid.
It is best known among seasoned rafters like Jeff Mercer for Ned's Gulch.
If not the best at certain levels.
Rafting trip, Class 3 river. Nothing real difficult or real edgy or real intense. This upper section does get a little intense at times, but that's because it's springtime and it's high water.
With no dams to restrain the flow, a deep snowpack in the Sierras can ensure a long season with good, consistent runoff. No wilderness river comes with a finer pedigree. The Merced's drainage includes the Yosemite Valley. Here, surface runoff and high Sierra snowmelt mingle to create some of the highest waterfalls in the world, Bridal Veil and Yosemite Falls. "100 miles north of Yosemite is one of California's most famous wilderness waterways, the Tuolumne. The Big T, as it is known, is a true wilderness experience. Only a few roads penetrate the deep, rugged valley of the Tuolumne. One of these leads to the put-in for the typical two-day Tuolumne River adventure.
See how the water's running through the trees?
Dan Walker is the head guide on the Tuolumne for one of the commercial rafting companies which run the river. He prepares his group for what to expect on the T.
Not in it for the money, really. We do it because we all enjoy it. We all have one thing in common, that we really love the river. I'd say springtime's actually the most enjoyable time to go down the river, especially for us, because it's new again. And the water's high, the hills are green, the wildflowers are out. People that do go down in springtime usually have found out that it's really the nicest time to go.
Even in the big water of spring runoff, the Tuolumne can require some tight maneuvering. Old cable footbridges are the first indication of the Tuolumne's colorful past. The Tuolumne was not always the isolated wilderness it is today. In the late 1800s, gold was found here. The rush was on, and it was big enough that it drew thousands of miners to the Tuolumne River Basin in search of yet another mother lode. Mining camps sprang up along the river and were served by mule trains and pack horses, which trod the narrow trails. But there were luxuries, even electricity from this now abandoned power plant. Everything came in by pack animal, including the heavy cast iron machinery and cement for foundations. Small side streams entering the Tuolumne offer some interesting side hikes. The warm water streams are a welcome alternative to the Tuolumne's cold snowmelt water. One of the best campsites in the Tuolumne is just above Clavey Falls. There is always enough time to go over the day's adventures before dinner is served.
You don't have time to hurt, you have to get back.
Really keep working.
One time though, I kept my eyes open right when the rapid came. And I feel like somebody throws a 50-gallon bucket in your face every time you hit a wave. It's great.
And then you keep your eyes open. It feels right like that.
Got to keep those glasses on.
I had this vision of these huge boats. I mean,
That's what I thought too.
Yeah,
all four of these put together, you know.
20 people on each side.
Yeah, exactly. Floating out, invincible in the river. But it makes you feel really little. It makes you feel real small.
Raft guide and author Christian Callan.
So you hear that noise, that's Clavey, which is the next rapid, which is the rapid the Tuolumne is known for. It's a wild ride, and the water's so high you can't run it over the falls, which is how you usually run it. You come in the left side and then book out under the falls and try to miss the hole, which eats boats.
The guides are careful to scout Clavey Falls before they run the rapid.
So I think I'm going to take the most conservative way, if any way is conservative. I guess come in behind these rocks here and downstream ferry, you say, and just really pull against the aerated water under the falls and try to get as far over there as I can without going too far, and then cut the right side of Clavey Hole and then try straighten it out for that and straighten it out for beyond Dinosaur, and then what's downstream after that? What if I fill with water?
Well, I think I'm going to take probably a less conservative run down the center of the river, a run we call the goalpost run. And it's a little bit risky because there's always a chance that you'll fill up with water and get rocketed right down the center of the hole, out of control. But more than likely what will happen is I'll use the hole in the middle of the river to my benefit. It'll stall me out a little bit and give me extra time to set up to hit the right-hand side of the hole, which is where I want to hit it. And that's what I'm aiming for. 8 years of boating, I haven't flipped yet, so I think I'll...
You're one of those, huh?
I think I'll take a chance this time.
Once the rafts pull away from the shore, there is no turning back. The Tuolumne's speed and current are too hard to resist. Christian Callan pulls hard on the oars to ferry his raft away from the hole at Clavey Falls. He makes it. Head guide Dan Walker chooses the more direct route. The Tuolumne trip ends at a reservoir where the wild river succumbs to a dam just downstream. The takeout is appropriate. It's unusual and unnerving, befitting the Tuolumne. Further north from the Tuolumne is another of the Sierra Nevada's finest wilderness rivers, the North Fork of the American. Before the beginning of a trip, the guides prepare their passengers for the narrow, technical whitewater of the American River.
Do not hold on to the boat unless the guide tells you to, because this is a real rocky river, and you might be on the upstream side of the boat, holding on, not seeing the rocks. The boat spins around and you go body plant. So don't hold on to the boat.
The North Fork of the American is one of the favorite rivers of guide Heather Allen.
It's a beautiful little river. It winds right through this pretty little canyon. It's got the nicest water currents, big, tall trees, and the foothills come right down to the edge. It's very steep, spectacular. It really is.
Chamberlain Falls is a 9-foot drop and typical of what the American offers. Almost everyone enjoys the excitement of Chamberlain Falls, even if their guide takes an early exit.
The place to be in the spring is in California doing our spring runoff technical rivers. It has some of the best whitewater in the world. Boatmen who raft around the world, everyone loves to come home for the spring season here in California. The North Fork is probably the prettiest, nicest spring runoff technical river in Northern California. It's a great trip.
On the South Fork of the American River, history was made. This old, obscure lumber mill has a name more familiar than most. It is Sutter's Mill, and in 1848, gold was discovered here. In 1849, the rush that followed would propel California into the limelight and into statehood. Sutter's Mill State Park is a common destination for day trips on the South Fork of the American. Much of the labor used in placer mine operations was supplied by Chinese workers.
We don't grow up with a lot of little rubber rafts around us. We don't have a whole lot of time to adjust to them. It's good to start your whitewater experiences on a river like the South Fork that's class 3, that's fun and playful and challenging in some spots, but you get to work on your skills. I mean, you feel a real feeling of accomplishment when you finish a trip here. You've learned some things, and hopefully you're a little bit more at ease on the water. And then if you like it and you enjoy the sport, you can go on and try more challenging rivers.
The South Fork is a good starting level river trip, and as such, is one of the most popular in the nation. On the other hand, one of the most challenging rivers is to be found to the north. Not in the Sierra Nevada, but cutting through the Siskiyous is the California Salmon River. Trip leader Rob Patagora.
Up until the 1920s, they had no road access into this part of the country. It was all hiking or mule trails. It's just so isolated. It took them 3 days to get in here from Eureka. To get upriver to Happy Camp, where it takes you 45 minutes now, it took them a day of packing, and it's just really an amazing part of the country to think that in the last 80 years, it's been civilized. Until then, there was nothing here.
The Cal Salmon is a true wilderness river. Much of its run is in a narrow, roadless gorge. Once the rafts leave the put-in, there is no turning back. River trips on the Cal Salmon are normally 1 or 2 day outings. Rafters exchange curious glances with wild horses.
The salmon is just a very unforgiving river. It's not a type of river that will allow a class 2 or 3 boater to slide by its narrow class 5 chutes. This whole river is a challenge. It's a challenge in every rapid. You can't ever let your guard down or it'll slap you good. The whole gorge itself, all the way from Bloomer Falls down to Woolly Creek, is a real special place to be, but Cascade and Last Chance and Freight Train are some real unique rapids. I've never run a rapid anywhere that's quite like Freight Train. That's quite a thumper. I think of all the clients I've taken down this river, we haven't had any of them that didn't have a good experience up here. It's just a special place to be. The whitewater is just great. This country is beautiful around here. You get to see a lot of bird life. You see some mule deer and you see river otters. We see bears occasionally. There's quite a few wild horses up near Nordheimer. It's a neat place.
In southern Oregon is one of the most famous wilderness rivers in North America, the Rogue River. Where the Rogue cuts through the Coast Range, it was officially designated in 1976 as one of America's first wild and scenic rivers. It's a special place that keeps guides like Skeeter Wilhelm coming back year after year.
First time I came down here was 9 seasons ago. First time I saw it was in a kayak, and then I started rafting it after that. During this mid-season, the water here actually gets up to nearing 75 degrees, and so it's real pleasant to go swimming, especially when the daytime temperatures around here can get as high as about 105, 108. Some trips that we have, it'll break 100 every day on a 5-day trip. Makes it pretty pleasant. This river is rated class 4, but generally the rapids are class 2 and 3, which makes them real fun with a high margin of safety. A lot of wet and a lot of splashing and some good drops happening along the river. There's a few places where we have some bordering class 4 whitewater that's real fun, and it keeps the quality of the whitewater on this river keeps the trip real fun and real interesting without being overly dangerous. So it is suitable to family groups and people who aren't looking for the really hardcore whitewater thrills, but they want an all-around whitewater river trip where they get to do a little hiking, a little whitewater, some sightseeing, and just a good fun time.
many California rivers, the Rogue has shared in a gold rush or two. And its fishing lured writer Zane Grey to build a cabin on its banks. Ranchers came, and then early day river runners. One of the most difficult stretches is the narrow gorge of Mule Creek Canyon.
Down in Mule Creek Canyon, because the river does get so narrow, it does get fairly deep. It's probably 25, 30 feet deep in most of the stretch going through there. And the water actually moves through there at a real good pace, even though sometimes on the surface it looks fairly flat. You still see, if you know what you're looking for, you still see a lot of real strong eddy lines and current lines.
In early fall, the grassy hillsides turn brown, and the deciduous trees add their reflections to the Rogue's green waters. Near the end of the 3-day raft trip, a short hike leads up Tate Creek to a natural water slide. North from the Rogue's narrow, intimate gorge is an entirely different type of river. Cutting through the coast range of southern British Columbia is the Fraser River. With a flow of 75,000 to 200,000 cubic feet per second, this is a river of big waves and huge hydraulics. To match the whitewater, river outfitters use huge motorized pontoon boats, J-rigs, and oversized rafts. The Thompson River is one of the main tributaries to the Fraser. Born in high snowfields, it cuts through much of the arid interior of British Columbia. But the very biggest whitewater is found downstream on the forested banks of the Fraser. One of the narrowest constrictions on the Fraser is deep in the canyon at Hell's Gate. Everything on the Fraser is big. The boats, the whitewater, the whirlpools. In the heart of the West in southern Colorado and Utah is a little-known and seldom visited wilderness river, the Dolores. A tributary to the Colorado, the Dolores meets the larger river a few miles north of Moab, Utah. Capped by the snow-covered La Salle Range, this is Red Rock Canyonlands country. The Dolores River expeditions usually begin in the high plateau country near Cortez, Colorado. Dr. Stephen Nicholson has run this river for the last 10 years.
Named by the Spaniards, Father Dominguez and Escalante. 1776, they were trying to find a route from Santa Fe to Monterey, California. They traveled across this area and stumbled upon this river and named it the Dolores River. And basically it means the river of sorrow. Through this whole region, from here west to the Grand Canyon and east over to Mesa Verde, Indians dwelled here. They're called Anasazi, and I think that name really came from the Hopi, which means ancient ones. And it is believed that the Hopi are the descendants. Yeah, what we're seeing is a granary that was built under an overhang to protect it from the weather. And also, if you look across river, you can see that there's a great big canyon coming down to this area, and that was their access, and that's why the ruin is there. They they didn't like to carry. They can only carry so much, so to store something in an area that you're going to return to makes a lot of sense.
The Dolores is also a favorite springtime run with guide Liz Hymans.
One nice thing about the Dolores is it's a good starter for people who haven't rafted before. The rapids are fun, they're exciting, but they're not really overwhelming. And if anyone does find them overwhelming or a bit too much, it's quite easy for those people to walk around them. And it's got Indian ruins, it's got really diverse scenery. There's a lot of nice hikes on it. I just think the scenery's awesome and the river's lots of fun. The Dolores has a lot of fast current. It has two rapids on it that are just corkers. One is called Snaggletooth. We've got more Snaggletooth war stories than you can shake a stick at. There's been ripped boats, torn boats, wrapped boats, flipped boats, all kinds of funny looking boats. And there are swimmers, lost cameras, all kinds of stuff.
Though for the most part a Class 3 river, the Dolores shows a wilder side, occasionally tearing out the bottom of a boat. At the Bedrock General Store, not very much has changed in the last 100 years. Here you find that the locals are not only curious, but friendly. The Dolores River trip presents several opportunities for scenic hikes. One of the most spectacular is the 1,000-foot climb to the top of Serpentine Plateau.
People come on these trips, especially on the hikes, we help them out and encourage them to stretch, to work a little harder, to do things that are scary for them and to push their limits a little bit. And then some people catch on to the fact that, hey, I did more than I thought I could. Maybe I can do that at home too or in my job. A lot of pressures of daily life seem to wear people down a lot, and they come out to recharge the batteries, to get back to nature, if you will, enjoy the simple things of life, like, you know, the beauty of a butterfly or a flower, the fun of riding through rapids, and the energy it takes to hike yourself around from point A to point B just for the view and nothing else. And just to look at the beauty of nature seems to recharge them terrifically.
The Dolores also has its share of recent history. Clinging 500 feet above the river is a 17-mile-long water flume used in the gold rush of the 1880s. The lower stretches of the Dolores are desert. Occasionally, a road will dip down to the Dolores Canyon, but for the most part, the Dolores is isolated. On the 9-day Dolores trip, the last 4 days pass through ranch and farming country, and much of the river is calm, punctuated by riffles and an occasional Class 3 rapid. The exception to the rule is State Line Rapid, the largest rapid on the Dolores. As its name implies, it is located right on the border between Colorado and Utah. The final 20 miles of the Dolores trip are in the open waters of the Colorado River. It brings to end one of the most diverse river trips in America, one that begins in a narrow canyon in pine forests and ends on the Colorado in high desert country. The eastern half of the United States has a very different river environment. The mysterious Chattooga River, of Deliverance fame, lies on the South Carolina and Georgia border. The Chattooga is one of the original rivers included in the Federal Wild and Scenic Rivers Act. The most popular river runs are known as Section 3 and 4. Both are day trips, and one of these, Section 4, is the most challenging.
This left foot.
River companies change the sizes of rafts they run to accommodate the varying flows of the Chattooga. River guide Darrell Barnes.
The fun part about guiding on the Chattooga and the challenge of guiding here is that the river does change. It's a free-flowing river. It's not dam controlled. So it drops radically and rises radically. And for every 1/10 of an inch it rises or falls, you will run any given rapid maybe a little bit differently. So it changes on a daily basis. I think what really draws me to the Chattooga and why this river is special over all other rivers that I've run is its natural beauty. And then, of course, the whitewater is probably some of the most challenging technical whitewater in the eastern United States. Part of the fun at the lower water levels, there's several places where we stop. One of them is a rapid called Stokoa Creek. And that Stokoa Creek is a little waterfall. Actually, it's not too little. It's maybe about 15 feet high, but it has a pretty gentle slope on it. And we'll let people slide down that and then go through a little chute at the bottom, and that's kind of fun.
Francis Glass is one of the guides who keeps coming back to the Chattooga year after year.
No matter what the level is, it's always scenic out here. At higher levels, it's wild. At lower levels, people notice the scenery. So no matter what, it's a beautiful river at any level. There are a couple of spots that we do like to point out to people just because they are so beautiful. One of them is Long Creek Falls. It's just a way to break up the trip, and people can hike up a little side creek and shower under the falls for a while, relax. It's certainly like nature's own water park out there in a lot of spots. Ravens Rock is a favorite with people. It's a pothole that's about 8 feet deep that you can swim through the other side and come up under a waterfall. At that sort of level 2, we can actually swim through that rapid, which is a pretty exciting water slide.
Waterfalls, like I was saying, is really the heart and soul of the Chattooga Section 4. And they consist of 5 rapids that are very, very close together. And the first one is Entrance Rapid, followed by Corkscrew, then Crack in the Rock, then Jawbone, and then Sock'em Dog.
To the north is the state of West Virginia, which has some of the best whitewater and wilderness rivers in the east. One of these is the Gauley River. put-in on the Gauley is one of the most spectacular to be found. Water burst from the outlet tubes of Somerville Lake at 80 miles an hour. The Gauley River is usually run in early fall when the Army Corps of Engineers releases water from the dam.
A lot like most of the western rivers, it's got a good gradient drop average.
Jeff Proctor, one of the Class 6 co-founders, prepares rafters for the good times ahead.
The Gauley River is a 24-mile premier section of whitewater. It's one of the best in the country and definitely the best in the east. What makes it even more challenging is the put-in. If you don't have your act together when you first put in, you're never going to get it together. We have a saying that there's two kinds of paddlers, the quick and the dead. We're only kidding about the dead, but you really have to have your crew organized before you even set your boat in the water.
First major rapid is just downstream. It has the unlikely name of Insignificant. Others follow in close succession with names like Iron Curtain and MASH. The wilderness that surrounds the Gauley River was not always so quiet. Mortar barrages and rifle fire once rang through the woods at Carnifax Ferry, the site of a major Civil War battle. 7,000 Union soldiers stumbled upon an encampment of just 2,000 Confederates. Though drastically outnumbered, General Floyd's Confederate soldiers held off the Union Army commanded by General Rosecrans. Hundreds of Union men were killed or wounded. Amazingly, the Confederates suffered but one injury. General Floyd, sitting on his horse behind the lines, caught a stray bullet in his hand. Below Carnifax Ferry, the Meadow River still silently joins the Gauley. Unlike the clear dam-controlled waters of the Gauley, the Meadow can bring tons of sediment and, in flood stage, can double the flow of the Gauley. Both the Meadow and the Gauley are old rivers, but their cutting continues, and the rapids change slowly over the years. No one knows that better than geologist and river guide Andy Lockwood.
There's a ledge drop river, which means that the layers of rock are meeting the bed of the river and then diving back underneath the river. So we have them appearing and reappearing very close together. So we get a sharp ledge, sharp drop. The rapids are fairly short, but the drops are pretty tight. Also, a lot of rapids on the Gauley tend to turn pretty radically in the rapid. Not uncommon, like in MASH, to turn 180 degrees. I talk about rocks all day, but you don't want to get to look at any of them too close. We talk about them and point to them, but we tend to try to give geology lessons from a distance, not up close and personal.
Near the Gauley is West Virginia's New River. It is known as the Grand Canyon of the East. The New River cuts a deep gorge through the entire Appalachian Range. Geologists believe the river was flowing in its present course even before the mountains began to form. In spite of its name, the New is probably the second oldest river on Earth, exceeded only by Africa's Nile. The New River is a second home for West Virginian Brian Abel.
We're gonna pull over. Good place to check your life jackets. Make sure the thing doesn't ride up on your ears there. And if it does, we'll tighten it up. But we'll go over here and get a couple jumps if y'all interested. Go into it?
Yeah,
I wouldn't do it. It's dangerous, but you guys go ahead.
West Virginia guides have a reputation for storytelling. Emily Vickery.
Very important. You know when a guide's lying, don't you? Their mouth is moving. Come on, don't shut me out of the raft yet. Not yet. Oh, by the way, if you do swim today, remember it's $5 if you want a rope to get back to the raft. And I do take, credit cards and checks, but that's okay. If you smile are nice and look terrified, I'll get you in anyway. Today, yeah, especially up there in the front. You need to hang on. Just remember to continue to paddle through the rapids. You'll brace yourself back in. We went over that earlier. Also, don't be surprised again if you're paddling and all of a sudden you're up there, and you're hitting air. You want to just keep paddling. Just hang in. If you feel a little unstable, just lean in a little bit. It's no problem. Even if you've never done this before, just have a great time. Remember, you want to scream a lot going through the rapids, so the raft behind you is going to really be wondering what's going on. So you want to keep the suspense up as much as possible.
But there is more to the New River than whitewater. Not long ago, the river's banks were alive with mining towns, and the sound of steam locomotives reverberated off the walls of the gorge. Raftsman Dave Arnold.
At one time, it's hard to imagine 5,000, 6,000 people living in the gorge. As a matter of fact, when I tell my people that in my raft, a lot of times I wonder if they believe me or not. Today, there's no one that lives in the gorge in this section from Thurman to Taze that we run. For a few years, there was one lady who lived here. She was a classic hermit. Her name was Melcini Field. She was the only person who inhabited the gorge, but she died about 2 years ago. And as the old-timers say, they left it to go back to the Indians. There's nobody in the gorge anymore. And I don't believe there'll be anybody living in it now that it's been made a national park for a long, long time. New River had 17 major towns in it. In its heyday, it's predicted anywhere from 5,000 to 7,000 people lived in the gorge. Right behind us was the town of Fire Creek, and in front of that was the town of Pembroke. The town on the left here was the town of Barry. Barry had approximately 400 people living in its heyday. It had an orchestra that came and played every Sunday, and one of the richest men in the gorge, Colonel Barry, was the first person to ship coal out of the gorge in 1873. These towns here were producing some of the most highly valued coal in the world at the time. It was what's called metallurgical coal, which meant that it burned very hot and was used in the iron ore industry. The coal was extremely accessible because this is the second oldest river in the world, second only to the Nile. And the river has cut a deep canyon here, which has exposed the seams of coal. The Sewell seam, which was the most famous seam, is about 2/3 of the way up the mountain here. And it was very economical to get because what you could do is you could get the coal right out of the face of the mountain and then drop it down to the railroad. The railroad is what made it really accessible.
I believe it was 1910. More freight went through the town of Thurman, West Virginia, than through the town of Cincinnati, Ohio on the main line of the C&O. So it was moving an awful lot of freight, which meant money, which meant people, which meant the town was really rolling. Other than a few stone foundations, about the only other thing that exists of this past history are the tipples, the large mine entrances, and the large coal loading bins. The reason for this is that the tipples were built of steel. The town of Nuttleburg, the town of Caymore, the town of Sewell, all of these have some remnants of old coal mining machinery and old coal mining history. The steel pieces and the stone pieces are about the only things that exist due to New River's harsh environment. The town of Caymore, another reason it's one of the few towns that exists, is because this is going to be the centerpiece of the National Park Service's new historical interpretation program. New River Gorge National River has spent over $3 million renovating Caymore mines in hopes that people that travel New River will have time to stop with the rafts, go up and look at the old mining structures, and somehow understand what really existed 40 years ago.
As you can see now, trains still roll through the gorge, but most of them are just passing through. Back in the 1800s, late 1800s, early 1900s, these trains would stop at all the towns. As a matter of fact, the school system would pick up the kids via the train every day and travel to Montgomery, which is a town about 40 miles downriver. And that was their only way to get out of the valley into the school system at that time. So now the trains just sort of roll through the gorge. They're just passing through. They're just visitors, just like we are. And in the olden days, it was estimated that there'd be 30 or 40 trains a day going through here picking up coal out of the 17 major towns.
The geology of the New River is complex. The pools and rapids are a result of rocks laid down in the far distant past. Here, on the right bank of Lower Keeney's, are ripples in the rock. This was a seashore 345 million years ago. The sand is turned to hard, resistant rock that creates the rapid called Lower Keeney's.
Just look at the deer and antelope playing on the shoreline, and we'll just kind of look around gradually, like casually, look like we're bored, move in for the kill, all right? Okay, let's back it up.
In central Maine is an isolated whitewater river, the West Penobscot. In autumn, the Maine countryside comes alive with its traditional brilliant colors. Of the West Penobscot is narrow and deep. on golden-hued waters. The biggest rapid is called Cribworks, where the gorge opens up into the rolling Maine countryside. Wilderness rivers, a free-flowing state of mind.